why aren't more people doing it? What is the barrier? Is it on the clinical utility side? So you're having to, convince payers that you actually can make that decision how to take care of these individuals post testing? Or is it that there's just not enough awareness out there from clinicians that actually, if I do this, I actually now have more information that I can use for managing patients? Is it on the medical side? Is it on the reimbursement side? Where's the biggest hurdle for you guys right now?
I'd say yes to both of your questions. There is growing awareness. People are not sure what whole genome sequencing or whole exome sequencing is, or what it can tell you, or how you might change management. So there's a lot of education about that. And then there's a concern potentially that it's too expensive. But it's time that we, take these things off the pedestal and really help clinicians understand that the major scientific and technological advancements have reduced costs, shortened turnaround times, and really do make a difference. There's a perception that if someone has intellectual disability, for example, getting a diagnosis, knowing what gene is causing it is not going to change management. But we know that's not true. There's often sorts of ancillary findings. So, for example, there's one young man that we diagnosed who had a nonverbal form of autism, and he was also taking some medication to help with some other clinical symptoms he was having, and they were having a really hard time regulating his blood pressure. Well, it turns out that his genetic form of autism was in a potassium chloride gene that also impacted kidney function. And there was another familial form of hypertension associated with that gene. So even though this was a very rare variant, it stood the test of logic that his hypertension and blood pressure issues were also caused by this gene. So they changed how they were treating it, and it really made a difference in his care. And so I'm going to pass it back to Britt, because we keep talking about whole genome sequencing, but we haven't fully defined it yet, have we?
Yeah, that's a good point, Trish. I guess the way that I think of whole genome sequencing is really starting with the DNA, right? And DNA in an individual is essentially the library of instructions, or you can think of it as the recipe for what makes you you, your hair color, your eye color, all of the different things that make you unique. But we also know that about 80% of rare diseases are genetic in origin, which means that they're caused from changes in the DNA. So at GeneDx, when we're doing the sequencing, we're analyzing the entire set of those DNA instructions, which we call whole genome sequencing, to look for those changes in the DNA that could be causing genetic disease. And one thing also, to the point you were asking, right, one of the barriers, or it's around education, right? When most people think of rare disease, they think of them as these, really rare, obscure conditions. But we know that about 1 in 10 individuals, at least in the US, have a rare disease. And we know that there are many genetic causes for some of these things that we think about as more common, like autism and epilepsy and developmental delays. And so really collectively, when you put all of these rare diseases together, they really are common.